Rush Cyberfunk is by far one of my favorite games of the decade. Never did I think that Team Reptile, a team who made one of the most slept on 2D fighters of the 2010s, Lethal League Blaze, would go out of their way to not only create a funk style skating game that is not only incredible but fascinating and interesting at the same time, bringing back a style of game that we typically don't see nowadays. Skating games are regarded as a thing of the past, with the last big titles I recall being Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, incredible remakes or remasters if you will of the older games but with new graphics. Skater XL is also another new game in the pack, but these games came out in 2020 and since then the genre has been pretty quiet, with the exception of Skate 4 or Skate with a full stop, with playtests going underway and more gameplay being shown, so there's that to look forward to. The reason I mention style is because Rush Cyberfunk is regarded to the community and the nostalgia kids out there as a spiritual successor to Jet Set Radio and Jet Set Radio Future, the 2001 Sega game which also sports the same retro, pixelated, stylized cel shading that this game has. And most if not all of the game takes a lot of its mechanics, flair and touch, but not to the point where it feels like a carbon copy of JSR, but more like its own game. Thankfully, with the game being released 23 years later, it's naturally going to attract a new audience, like me. Full disclosure before we get into the review, I'm a brand new skater gamer myself. I've never played or invested time into any skater game out there, but I'm aware of such games and always had the thought, but was too busy spending my childhood on Call of Duty. So I'll be viewing Rush Cyberfunk as a brand new player for the genre, which I hope can resemble with other people who feel like they're on the same boat as me and want to know if it's worth buying or playing as someone who's never played these sorts of games before. Rush Cyberfunk is an action-adventure platformer game where you play as skaters or riders and are thrusted into the world of New Amsterdam, a city beaming with life and graffiti. I say graffiti because as you go through each of the game's 5 districts, you'll be performing tricks and vandalizing property in order to build up your reputation, as well as fighting rival gangs for control of the city, which is this game's gimmick. In terms of the gameplay itself, there's a few things to consider: skating, tricks, and combat. Skating is Cyberfunk's main shtick, as you'll be skating around New Amsterdam, jumping and navigating through all kinds of obstacles, such as poles, statues, platforms, rails, and zip lines. As you begin skating, you'll rack up a score at the bottom, which shows you your score and a combo multiplier, all which is built up by performing different tricks, and switching it up is key to increasing that multiplier. And before you ask, no, you cannot rack up a high score by being on the same objects over and over again, since it won't add to your multiplier if you've already interacted with it during that streak. Corners and ramps are your main source of building combos, but small things like boost tricking, where you can give yourself a bit of speed after performing a trick, or holding the right trigger after doing a jump to maintain momentum, can not only add to your score, but maintain those combos for longer, since one wrong move can end your streak entirely. Part of what makes skating games addicting is chasing high scores and trying to see how long you can maintain a combo for, and I'm happy to say that Rush Cyberfunk does this wonderfully in a way that is more forgiving and a lot simpler compared to those other games. It's important to note this because the only times I ever lost a combo was if I was colliding with an object, so maybe a set of stairs or a garbage can, creating less room for error if you will, and as long as there's something in front of you you can cling onto and hold down the right trigger when you're on the ground, you'll almost never fail. And this is one of the main criticisms I see from players and critics alike. It's that it's too simple and forgiving. Judging from how forgiving the mechanics are and how much time you're given when you're doing a manual or assess slide, Team Reptile clearly designed the game to be a more laid back and chill skating game, and I think it's a good thing, especially for people like me who went into this thinking it would be hard and I'd have to invest a good amount of time just to get the mechanics down. My first hour of Rush Cyberfunk was spent learning the mechanics and introducing myself to the world, and I was fumbling enough times to know that this was probably going to take a while to get good at. In fact, before making this video, I saw that someone made a movement guide on BRC, so if that's the thing, it's probably going to be one of those games that's easy to learn, hard to master. But once I got to my second hour and clocked in at the next district, I pretty much got it down and got my first high score, which was a satisfying feeling, so don't be like me and judge a book by its cover, expecting a super hard game. I did watch the movement guide video after, and it's more or less additional mechanics that the game doesn't teach you, which I thought was awesome, considering Team Reptile left parts of the game's systems out intentionally for players to discover and learn themselves. You can also think of Cyberpunk as a sandbox as well, as there's a few things I do want to talk about in that regard when we get to the story section of the video. The last thing to mention is the combat, which is lackluster and boring at best outside of a few encounters. As you conquer each of these districts, mechanized police will come into the fray and try to stop you from performing greatness, which you just kick them a few times and you'll be able to get back to business. But the game ramps up later on with shields, snipers, attack helicopters, and freaking mechs. And while they're cool to fight the first time, it gets repetitive after a while as you just go up to the engines or parts, spray them a few times, and the job's finished. Post game is where it gets interesting though, since you can accumulate stars and fight these mechs in other areas as opposed to the force encounters that the game gives you, changing it up and making use of a different environment to fight the police in different ways. So it's got that going for it, but the way you interact with them is pretty much the same. BRC takes place in the fictional city of New Amsterdam, or All City. We'll use All City in this instance because all the characters say that. In a world where human parts can be switched both organically and cybernetically at will, the city is known for its riders, who perform vandalism acts in a race to become All City, an individual or group who has control of all 5 districts of New Amsterdam. You start the game off as Foe, a rider who gets awoken by another man due to a prison break and offers to free him in exchange for joining his crew. Learning the game and fighting the police lieutenant, Rietveld, who becomes a central character throughout the game. As you jump off a building, you get your head chopped off by a vinyl record and wake up the next day to have a red cybernetic head. Your memories and personality are wiped off the map and get introduced to the BRC, the Bomb Rush Crew, which will be your main crew for the rest of the game as Trice and Bell, your other crew members, propose an offer you can't refuse. Become All City in New Amsterdam. I won't bore you with the entire story since it'll be a bit of a stretch and I may go on for ages, but there's 2 main plots to Cyberpunk. Taking the districts one by one and finding out who you really are as another character, DJ Cyber, the DJ that chopped your head off, tries to bring back your memories and recall who you were in the past, as the Cyberhead isn't what it seems. Each district goes like this. You go around and explore, spraying graffiti and building up your reputation in order to get the rival gang's attention. As you accumulate reputation, you'll be given micro challenges where the crew members challenge you to do something in particular, and beating them will progress you through the game. Once you've achieved the max amount of reputation, you'll then challenge the crew to a battle, where you have to earn as much score as you can in 2 minutes and whoever has the most score wins. Part of what I like about this game is that it's non-linear in a sense that you follow your own path. You can explore and spray everything that you please if you want to at first, which is what I did for every district I went to. You can learn the map and start going for a high score immediately, do the micro challenges as soon as they're up, or do them later whenever you feel like it. I appreciate the freedom of choice so much, since the majority of these games are about creating and finding your own path and combinations to rack up those high scores and progress through the game in any way you please. Each crew has its own distinct look and feel, and I love their designs so much. You've got the Franks and Versum Hill, cybernetic humans all made by the Flesh Prince, their leader, sporting the same face but different human parts. One of them even goes out of the way to say that he got his leg from a Puerto Rican guy. Eclipse are the crew at Millennium Square, a crew of exclusively women and have a big focus on astrology. I found them cool in particular because of their dominance towards men, as if you try to talk to any of them as Red, they don't give you a proper response and instead refuse to listen to you, so you have to swap to Bell in order to interact with them. The .exe crew in the Millennium Mall have to be my favorite crew thanks to their pool ball heads and amazing breakdancing skills, which you actually learn yourself once you've beaten them. Oh, and they also pay to win by investing money into cybernetics to beat their competition. Devil Theory is the most interesting rival crew, a crew that owns Pyramid Island outside of the city, but are also the kind of people that don't care about the street code and love causing trouble, even if it gets people killed. This is further shown by the Oni-like masks who are known in folklore for being cruel and malicious. Lastly, we have Futurism, DJ Cyber's crew up in Matan, who's said to be best of the best when it comes to their cybernetics and skating style. As for the other main plot, It's more about discovery and becoming self-aware as DJ Cyber puts you through these dreamlike scenarios where, after taking each district, you'll be transported to this realm and complete linear-style levels as opposed to the sandbox. These levels were always so fun to do, and I loved it whenever the camera would zoom out during certain moments in these levels, where it turned into 2D. It felt like I was playing Sonic, and I loved every moment it happened. It's quite a spectacle to see as well, design-wise, and I kinda wish there were more of these levels sprinkled into the real world. Over time, you'll learn who the real Red is, your origins, and the Big Three, who consisted of Felix, DJ Cyber, and Foe, who ruled the city for a long time, with Felix gaining all the smoke and notoriety from both the people and the police. Due to Foe having a father, he was always clean of all of his criminal activities, so he could never be as dirty as Felix, and he grew jealous as a result. So he killed Felix, and DJ Cyber killed him, thinking it would put a stop to his madness. But the police ended up picking up his head and using it for their own project known as Project Algo, a program designed to kill and end all riders for good, with Foe being the catalyst for this project. It fumbled badly and got the police captain killed, alongside manipulating all the police force to do his dirty work, and it all culminates with this simple yet cool boss fight atop of Matan, where you navigate between the rails, jump towards each of the mechanical arms and take them out one after the other. The camera angles really help to illustrate spectacle and observe Fox's machine in its biggest form outside of the cutscenes, and after getting rid of him, the city becomes yours. The story may not be the most plot-driven or in-depth with choices and strong character development, but it's enough that it not only kept me interested, but I was able to recall what happened for the majority of it as I'm watching the footage back and editing this video. If you're as surprised about the second part of the story as I am, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. If you're new, I'm Pepsilk and I make gaming content from reviews to news and anything that comes to mind. Any support is appreciated, and I thank you guys for sticking around this far into the video. I think what really drew me to this game in the first place outside of the skating part is the cel-shaded, stylized art style, resembling something of the late 90s to the early 2000s, since graphically, games weren't as photorealistic as we see them now. As mentioned before, the game takes heavy inspiration from Jet Set Radio, more specifically Jet Set Radio Future, as when you compare the two games back to back, it's night and day in terms of character design, movesets, and architecture. The locations are one-to-one in a lot of places. Team Reptile really said, fine, we'll do it ourselves, and made it look a lot cleaner for modern standards, alongside all of those quality of life changes and improvements. BRC's OST is so addicting that I found a Spotify list dedicated to the tracks that are played in game. It's soothing, relaxing, chaotic at times, and so much fun to listen to while you're going for combos. All the music you're hearing in the background is taken straight from the game. It just fits the aesthetic so perfectly. I also love that they brought in Hideki Naganuma, the composer for the JSR series, who's credited for several tracks. Shout out to Team Reptile for making the majority of the revenue from the soundtrack sales on Steam go to the artists themselves and not the devs. Huge W for the composers out there. We love and appreciate you for contributing to this amazing soundtrack that I don't see myself steering away from anytime soon. Outside of playing Red and later on Felix, you can play other characters as well, like Trice, the man who got you out at the start and right to BMX, Belle with her inline skates, Vinyl, and Solus, two characters who you'll pick up later. I didn't mention their skates because they're pretty much the same in terms of what's offered to you, just in different colors. Later on, during post-game and as you explore the districts, you can unlock other characters who are more or less a welcome addition, and the gameplay loop doesn't change for each character. It's only the moveset that gets affected when you change your skates. You can unlock one of each crew member from the 5 factions by simply competing against them in a score attack and racking up an X amount of points within 5 minutes. It's nothing crazy, but it's nice to have more characters to play as whenever you want to switch it up. Another fun thing to do in BRC is what I like to call the Collect-a-thon, where you find all the game's collectibles. There's white t-shirts that give your character outfits, there's memory cards that reveal all the graffiti within a district, graffiti that can be obtained either after doing micro challenges or simply finding them in the world, these cat hand thingies that when you collect an X amount of them opens up a post station which you go into and collect whatever it is that's in there, and discs that contain songs which you can play and switch to at any time on your phone. They're pretty fun to look out for and gives players additional content post-game. Plus the outfits you get are handy since to lose heat, you go to one of these orange stations and change your outfit. BRC is the simplest kind of skating funk style game you're gonna get, and Team Reptile kept simplicity in mind when making it, from its trick mechanics to its lackluster combat and easy to learn systems. The story is surprisingly good, and given that it's attracted someone like me who managed to play it from start to finish over the 9 to 10 hour campaign and is itching to play more every now and then to chill out and go for high scores, it's a reminder of a time when games were simple and just about having fun rather than paying for skins or a slot machine to get said skins. Why pay for them when you can earn them yourself? I enjoyed every minute of playing it, and whether or not you're attracted to it for the art style or the gameplay, for those long-time skater gamers, you may not find much interest in the gameplay department. But for people like me, this was fun and addicting, and I hope that BRC 2 is on the cards for their next title. I cannot wait to see what Team Reptile does next. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. If I missed anything, comment down below. I'll have more coming to you soon. Peace.